Hello friends, welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator and another video. If you have been following the channel, I mentioned in one of my previous videos that classic airliners are my weakness. And here we are with another classic airliner that was released a week or so ago by Flight Sim Studios, the Boeing 727-200 freighter. There has been a lot of videos on YouTube, I know, but I didn't want to record a video because when the aircraft was first launched, there were some bugs that were causing some issues, and I just didn't want to spend the time, which I have very limited of, to record a video that would be a little bit awkward to encounter the bugs and not being able to fly the aircraft as it was meant to be flown. So that's the reason behind the delayed video with the 727. But an update was released by the developer and they fixed some of the bugs, not all of it, but at least the ones that are affecting the aircraft operation were fixed. Namely, I had some problems personally with the bleed air system where I wasn't able to start the engines even if everything was set up properly. The trim had some issues, so they were fixed. Some of the gauges in the cockpit were acting weird. The needles were not moving properly, so they were fixed. And some other improvements have been introduced with this new update and brought the aircraft to a state where I'm feeling comfortable recording a video and sharing my experience with you. This is going to be a series of videos, probably 4 or 5 videos, where we take the aircraft from a cold and dark state and discuss the electrical power up and pre-flight procedure, talk about how we are going to plan our flight and navigate the virtual skies, pushback and taxi, takeoff, climb, and then cruise. Obviously there's not much to do in cruise, so I might combine that with cruise and descent, and then we'll do approach and landing and park the aircraft and shut it down. So that's the plan. The part of the world I decided to do this video series is United Kingdom, and I have some reasons for that. Number one reason is UK has the most number of VORs still operational when compared to the rest of the Europe and North America and South America. I don't know much about Asia or Africa, but at least the UK has more VORs than the other regions I mentioned. 2, I have an add-on that adds the missing VORs to the sim, where vanilla Microsoft Flight Simulator does not have all the VORs in the UK, but the Burning Blue Designs VORs of UK add-on adds those missing ones, so it gives a full VOR coverage, and I think that's important to have, especially with a classic airliner where it was flown by conventional radio navigation. Even though it has GPS, the departure and arrivals cannot be flown with the GPS or the INS rather, and you have to fly them conventionally. So that's the second reason. And the third reason is I always liked flying in the United Kingdom in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I think it's one of the best countries to fly in the sim and have experience. And then I have some custom airports in the UK that makes the viewing experience a little bit more better than the default airports that Microsoft Flight Simulator offers. So those are the reasons. We are currently parked at Glasgow, and our destination is going to be Cardiff in the UK. And as I mentioned, we'll take the aircraft from a cold and dark state and take it all the way to Cardiff. Please make sure you follow the videos. I will be discussing some other tips and Easter eggs, especially for those of you who are not subscribed to Navigraph, because this aircraft uses some GPS coordinates to align the INS system. If you are not using the GTN 750 or GNS 430 to fly the aircraft with GPS support, this might become important. So we'll discuss about that when we are talking about the flight plan, part of the flight, and probably that's going to be the second video. Anyway, I hope you enjoy what you see, and if you do, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel and turning on the notifications to get notified for future videos. Without further ado, let's get the flight started, and I'll meet you in the cockpit very shortly. Welcome to the flight deck of Boeing 727. I keep saying 737. What a beautiful view. I really enjoy looking at these gauges and the entire 3D model of the cockpit. I think it looks fantastic and gives you that classic airliner feel. Hopefully this aircraft will get better over time. It still has some bugs after the first update, but I am pretty sure the developer will be fixing those very shortly. Anyway, we'll start with the electrical power up, and for that we'll just go to the engineers panel, and then we'll come back to the captain's seat to complete the pilot's electrical power up and pre-flight procedure. So let's go back to the cockpit, or back of the cockpit to the engineering panel. And this is where we start. You can call this like an engineering station overhead panel. And then the bottom panel is engineering station main panel, I guess, if you will. But we'll start at the top. Battery switch is here. We will close the guard to turn the DC power. And we immediately start to read the DC amps and the battery level, which is around 28 volts. We'll switch the DC meter to the essential bus and leave it there for now. But this is not the only thing, so we need to establish AC power to the aircraft, whether by using the ground power unit or the APU. For this tutorial series, I'm gonna use the APU, and we'll take a look at a couple things before we start the APU. First things first, make sure the windshield wiper is in the park position. All the cockpit lights are in the off position. They are currently bugged, so even if they are showing off, once we have the AC power, you'll see that all the lights are turning on, so I hope this will be fixed in a future update. All the exterior lights are in the off position, except we can turn on the nav lights because we have electrical power to the aircraft. Landing gear lever is down, flaps are retracted, speed brakes are stowed, parking brake is set, fuel cutoff switches are in the cutoff position. And that's pretty much all we need to do for the AC power. So let's go back to the engineer's station, and on the right of the engineer's station we have the APU panel and engine fire detection lights, as well as the fuel dumps control switches behind the door. So APU start is no different than any other airliner you have seen, mostly close to the Boeings rather than the Airbus. But we'll start with the fire test. One thing I'd like to mention here is these tests are simulated by the developer. However, the failures associated with these tests or can fail these systems are not. So in other words, you are doing these tests for the realism purposes. If you are like me and if you like to learn the aircraft and do it as realistic as possible, this is a reason to do these tests. Otherwise, none of these systems will fail because no failures are simulated in this aircraft. Regardless, we'll do the fire test. We heard the bell, we reset the bell for once and then reset it one more time to close the circuit, and now we are ready to start the APU. We'll move the switch to the on position, the light will turn on. Hold it to the start. Actually, you cannot hold it, it releases itself immediately. It used to hold there in the previous version before the update. So So I'm not sure if this is the correct behavior or what, or not, but you are hearing that the APU is starting. In the meantime, we can request a refueling truck to refuel the aircraft. This is fully integrated with GSX, and you'll see what I mean by that here in a second when the refueling truck arrives.
Refueling truck is on its way.
All right, perfect.
Please don't load aircraft until the fuel truck arrives and
So
ask
now
to
we
do
have
it.
the APU running. We are reading some volts, so we'll go and close the generator circuit, and this will supply AC power to the aircraft, turn the essential power to APU, and leave it there. Now we can get some lights to the engineering panel, and you'll see the bug I mentioned here in a little bit. The switch will completely go to the max position the moment I scroll my mouse wheel once. Well, it didn't happen here. Oh, that one did that, so just like that. So that's kind of the bug that I was talking about.
Fuel truck is in position.
Beautiful. We have the fuel
Please
truck.
don't
So
load
to start
aircraft until the fuel truck arrives and
refueling,
ask
we need to
do it.
bring the clipboard out, and then go to the pre-flight page, import our flight plan from SimBrief, and then that gives us the fuel quantities, and we'll hit the play button. And if we go outside, you'll see that the fuel truck has started pumping fuel into our tanks. So the fuel truck will remain here until this timer is 0. So that's the integration, and you can simulate that kind of ground operation and ground services with GSX if you are interested in those. Okay, let's go back to the engineering station. We have the power, we have the lights at least over here set. We will set the cockpit lights or the captain's lights when we are in the captain's seat. Next thing we need to do is to check our hydraulic system quantities to make sure we have enough hydraulics in the system, and then we can use either the 1 or 2 electrical pump 1 or 2 in hydraulic system B to pressurize the hydraulic system. So I'll use the pump 2 first. Make sure it pressurizes the system, and then turn off pump 2 and turn on pump 1 to make sure the system remains pressurized. We'll check the oil quantities of the engines by holding the test button, and we're watching the needles go back to 0, and releasing the test button should move them into their current readings. That's also done. Ground interconnect. We can turn it to open. I'm not sure if this is required to operate the door, because the cargo door operates in any condition, and never seen a tutorial about this part, so I'm not sure about this, but we'll keep it on. We'll make sure the boost pumps are off, and we'll go to the back and open our cargo door, because we are gonna need it to load the cargo into the aircraft. You hear the door moving. There it is, slowly moving and opening, and I think the door timing is close to the real aircraft in terms of how long it takes to open the door. So that part is done. We will just test the wing anti-ice. And then reset, put it to normal, test the light bulbs for all the lights here, and from here we can go to the bleed air panel, open the cooling doors completely. That's one door open. It's kind of slow, but it is what it is. That's the right cooling door, now fully open, and we can turn all the bleeds on. Wait for the system to pressurize. You have to let APU run at least for a minute before applying any air pressure to the bleed air system. And now we can go ahead and turn the packs on to provide some air to the cockpit, because there's nothing in the back in terms of passengers or whatnot. From here we'll go to the pressurization panel. Our cruising altitude is going to be 29,000 feet. That's now set. Elevation at our destination airport Cardiff is 220 feet above sea level, so we will set that too. And based on these readings and our cruising altitude, we use this placard to see what kind of cabin altitude we need. For 29,000 we need 3.2, so we will set it to 3,200. And that completes the pressurization system panel preparation. There is a test that you can apply. I heard that this was bugged, so I'm not gonna bother with that test, but that test will probably start working in a future update. Alright, from here we'll go back to the upper or engineering overhead and turn the galley power on. And last but not least, we will turn on the radio master switches, which are behind the captain's seat in this circuit breaker panel. Alright, this completes the engineering or the engineer's electrical power up procedure. We'll continue with the captain's seat. We already put the nav lights on. We'll do an engine fire test. Bell cut out and turn the test off. It's kind of dark outside, so we can also turn the logo lights on. We'll test the instrument lights, make sure all the lights are working in the cockpit. We'll also check the dim position. We'll reset the autopilot disconnect warning. And we'll come back to the INS for alignment. With the update, the alignment takes a lot longer than what it used to be, so we'll come back to this, but we'll start with a overhead panel scan, stall warning test. We'll come back to this. We'll test the flight recorder. We'll test the instrument comparison or complete the instrument comparison test by holding this button. It's comparing the instrument lights here to the co-pilot and failing the test if any of them is not working, but as I mentioned, none of those failures are simulated in this aircraft, so do not expect anything to fail. Everything here looks okay. We'll do a cargo fire test. Put the auto brakes to RTO. Coming back, engine start panel will stay in its current position. We'll test the cockpit voice recorder. Compass should be slaved. Alternate flaps should be in the off position, and the guard should be closed. We'll turn on the no smoking and passenger signs because we are completed with refueling. Arm the emergency exit lights. Set our transponder code to 2000. Come back to the up again, turn on the window lights, window heat switches, and test the overheat, and then turn them back off. Anti-ice system, the test here is to put these to the ground test position and then turn on the system, wait for the lights to turn on, and then we turn on the switches. Lights should extinguish and then turn back on. And you have to repeat this for each position here. And then right side, same thing again. And then finally the wings, and then we can turn this off. and to make sure the switches are in the off position. We'll test the probe heat switches to make sure they are working, and we can adjust some panel lighting here. As you see, the moment I turn on the lights, they go all the way to max brightness. That's the bug introduced with the update, so hopefully they will fix this in a future one, because it's kind of annoying to dial them back once you touch the knob. We are not gonna use the fluorescent light, but we will use some integral lighting here. The red light, we are not gonna need it. I am just turning them on to get rid of that bug and turning them back off. This is the co-pilot's panel lights, so we'll do the same over there and add some lighting to the co-pilot side. That's the dome light, which we will not need, so we can turn it off. And the compass light, same thing, we can turn it off. So that's the overhead complete. We'll continue with the captain's side. Okay, we'll start with the clock. Make sure the clock is working, and you can change the clock to between UTC and local time using the clipboard. There's a setting here, clock time UTC local, so that will change the time that the clock displays. Airspeed indicator, will come back to this. RMI, ADI, we can test the ADI, and then our VSI. Oh, I'm sorry, HSI. We'll just test. We'll set the barometric pressure later once we have the ADIS information. We'll release this standby artificial horizon, or ADI, or the technical name I believe was the attitude direction indicator, I believe was the name of that instrument, but I just know it as ADI anyway. Altitude selector, will come back to this. While we are here, we can complete the Mach airspeed warning test for system A and system B. We have already tested this, tested dim lights. Make sure all of these light bulbs are also in operating condition, including the marker lights and step trim and elevator warning lights. Engine instruments checked. EPR, we'll talk about EPR in the next episode when we are, or on the third, where we are talking the performance. Co-pilot side, we can do the same tests for the co-pilot. I'm gonna do them all, and we can complete the ground proximity warning system test. Alright, that system is working. And finally, for the electrical power up, we'll turn on our audio panel, select our audio sources, and turn the knob to the VHF1 to listen to VHF1 for the pilot side. And that is also carried over to the co-pilot side, but we can turn it on and select VHF2 for co-pilot. Parking brake set, and this pretty much concludes the electrical power up of the aircraft. Next up is to start loading the cargo and finishing the setup of the CYNS, planning our flight and being on and departing Glasgow. We can also do these warning system panel tests to make sure they are working, as well as the flaps indicator lights test and position test. And that is pretty much what we need to do for electrical power up. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you did, please consider giving it a like. And if you stumbled upon this video but not a channel subscriber, please consider subscribing and turning on the notifications to get notified for future videos. Thanks for being here with me today. I'm not sure why GSX removed the stairs, but I will reattach the stairs to the aircraft. And see you in the next episode.